record this just in case for people who are unable to make it but did register. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for coming today. My name is Stephanie Long. I am formerly the programs chair. This is my final program before I roll off and do another position on the board and turn it over to Julia Boas, who's going to do a wonderful job. So thank you to everyone for joining me the past year for all the programs that we've done. It's been really fun. For my final hurrah, I am so thankful that I have Erica Lawson here to grace our screens with all of her wonderful knowledge. I wanted her to come and talk to us about negotiating pay because it is an employee's market right now, and she had a ton of other really great ideas and topics to include with that. So I'm really looking forward to her presentation today. To tell you a little bit about Erica, she works with Interactive Strategies, which I believe is out of Washington, D.C. One of our board members is actually one of her colleagues. Yeah. Erica has expertise in every facet of human resources, including talent management, benefits, employee relations, and HR compliance. Always striving for process improvement, she has exceeded revenue goals and increased team effectiveness by optimizing operations processes, recruitment, performance management, and training. Erica relates to and empathizes with all types of people by understanding employees' perspectives and challenges. She effortlessly establishes trust and builds relationships. Erica advocates for employees with such passion and persistence she can change lives. And when she's not championing people at work, she enjoys cosmetology, listening to podcasts, spending time with family and friends, traveling, and home improvement projects, which I feel a lot of us can probably resonate with that one over the past couple of years. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Erica. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Stephanie. As she stated, I'm Erica Lawson, and I'm the HR Associate and Happiness Manager at Interactive Strategies. And I'm excited to join you all for this presentation about how to negotiate your worth. And I hope you all learn a lot from this discussion. So there will be a Q&A portion at the end of this, but feel free to drop any questions in the chat that you may have along the way. So without further ado, let's get started. So in this session, we will be covering the importance of salary negotiation, researching your market worth, knowing your value, turning an offer into a negotiation, considering the full compensation package, preparing and delivering that counter offer, and knowing when to walk away. All right, so importance of salary negotiation. So your salary is a fundamental consideration for your professional life. Negotiating your salary could be a factor in choosing what positions that you want to take and feeling valued at that job. So while negotiating your salary could be a bit uncomfortable and a little bit intimidating, there are so many reasons why it's necessary. So salary negotiations are often expected. So sometimes the job will state that the pay is non-negotiable, but that doesn't mean you still can't explore ways to negotiate on benefits and perks, which we'll talk about a little later in this presentation. However, if it's not explicitly stated, it's safe to assume that it is negotiable. So most employers, they don't disclose the salary range up front, which could be a bit annoying, but they do expect to have this conversation at some point. And they not only accept that candidates will ask for more money, but they expect it. And studies have shown that about 75% of those who negotiate effectively receive some type of compensation increase. So your current salary will follow you. By negotiating your current salary, you're increasing that number that you'll be able to show your next employer in that negotiation, and so on down the road. Negotiating for the higher salary will set the tone for pay raises later down the line. So for example, if the employer gives 5% increases every year, those raises will be higher based on a higher starting salary. So negotiate now and reap the benefits later. Negotiating your salary helps close the pay gap for women. So negotiating your salary can not only make a difference for you, but others in the company. There's no secret that gender-based pay gap in the US exists, although it has improved over the years. But according to SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resources Management, women earn about 82 cents for every dollar men earn. So women can work to close that gap by advocating for themselves. You also want to show employers that you know your value. So negotiating your salary, it shows that employer that you're competent, that you're confident, and you know what you have to offer. And they will value those traits when it comes time to start increasing your job responsibilities, trusting you with those key clients, and promoting you into leadership positions later down the road. More money is better. I mean, that goes without saying. Need I say more? So a higher salary, that supports you with any goals you have outside of your career. So like buying a home, buying that nice car you've had your eye on, getting married, having kids, home improvement projects, all those great things. So researching your market worth. So this is very important. In this stage, it's important to remember that it is not about you at this point, but it's about what the position is worth to the company. So you will want to research the titles, seniority, the industry, the geography, and any other broad economic trends that may impact that industry. So here's a list of recommended sites that you've probably heard before, but just to highlight a few. We have the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which provides a huge database of national wage data for hundreds of occupations and industries. Then we have Pay Scale, which generates reports on staff costs and needs by using those employee submissions. You also have Pay Scale, Salary.com, Indeed, which gathers data from job posting and employee submissions. And Indeed in particular is a very great tool for finding salary information on small businesses. Then we have LinkedIn Salary, which shows that salary insight data based on the employee provided data, but they classify it by location and job title. And they also provide insights on bonuses, stock options, and sign-in bonus information as well. Let me take a quick sip. And then we have Glassdoor, which uses that employee provided data as well to generate those salary insights. So you'll also want to have these conversations with people in your industry, because sometimes that online data can be a little off. It can also be challenging to find salary data for remote work, since some companies may pay based on where the company is located, while others may pay based on where the candidate is located. So it's important to kind of use your network and get that real-time data. And these people can include your fellow coworkers, other professionals in the industry, and HR professionals. And salary discussions can be uncomfortable, but if you facilitate them correctly, it can be very helpful. But it's important to realize that not everybody is going to want to discuss their salary with you, which is okay, but you just need a nice amount of people to agree. And then there are some best practices involved with having these conversations to make them more successful. Some of them include reaching out via phone or email, where you'll state your intent to gain insight into the industry and you would love their advice. You'll also want to make sure that you're asking an even amount of men and women just to account for that pay disparity. You may also want to offer out a number first, just to make others feel more comfortable sharing. So for example, you may say, I'm saying 85 to 95,000 a year as a starting salary for this role. Does that sound right to you? And you also want to avoid like having these conversations in public or at work, because that makes it a little more uncomfortable. And then from there, you can add this data to supplement your research and just base your salary expectations on that. Knowing your value. So once you've established a baseline expectation for pay, it's time to build the case for why you deserve more. So you'll do this by determining how much value you can add to a company. Your value will be at the center of your negotiation strategy. So think about what you've accomplished so far. It's important to demonstrate to the hiring manager why you're worth the investment of a higher salary. So a summary of your achievements, honors, any examples of how you benefited other companies can assist you with making this claim. And make note of any professional certifications or talents, especially if it's in high demand for your industry. What are some things that set you apart from your competition? What's your edge? What about you makes you invaluable in the workplace? Think about those things. And how can your skills and experience make an impact on the bottom line if you're hired? Think back on your past performance. Did you make any record-breaking sales? Have you found any economical solutions? Have you streamlined any processes, optimized any processes? Think about these things and make sure you're being specific when it comes time to explain these contributions. Turning an offer into a negotiation. So it's important to remember that salary negotiation isn't a battle, nor is it an ultimatum. It's a collective process and an opportunity for you to create a compensation package that makes sense for both you and the employer. So once the offer is made, you want to begin by thanking the employer first for the job offer and express your excitement for the opportunity. Then you'll want to ask for the offer in writing if they haven't already done so. So this way you can have all of the details in one place for your consideration, as well as limit the possibility for them to rescind the offer. You may say something like, I'm really excited about this opportunity and I appreciate the offer. I love 2 days to review the details of this package in writing and think about it. Then you'll want to schedule a conversation to discuss that offer. And a quick tip with that is to try to schedule these conversations on a Thursday or a Friday, because the end of the week is beneficial when everybody's winding down and ready for the weekend and in the best mood. Considering the full compensation package. So you'll want to look beyond the salary and consider the full compensation package. So your compensation includes your salary or hourly wages, any bonuses, any benefits and perks that employees receive in exchange for their work. So the benefits and perks are important to consider for a million reasons, but just to name a few. It helps you offset the costs of necessary services. So that's going to be your dental and vision care, your disability, pet insurance, and so on. Then it helps you maintain a healthy work-life balance. That's going to be your workplace flexibility, your PTO, any mental health and wellness benefits, childcare, and so on. And then it also helps you prepare for the future. So you have your professional development opportunities that can lead to higher salaries and promotions. And then you'll have your retirement savings, stock options, and beyond. So then you'll want to ask yourself, is this compensation package competitive? Meaning, is it valued at equal to or greater than similar companies in the industry? And these things can most likely be found on most company career sites. But some things to think about, because there are things you won't find on the site, which includes like your benefit eligibility requirements. So you may not be eligible for all the job benefits and perks immediately. For instance, some programs are open only to employees who've been with the company for a certain amount of time, or it may be dependent on your manager's approval. So don't be afraid to ask for those policy documents so that you can read through those things in full and use those things to negotiate. It's helpful to make a list of your must-haves versus your nice-to-haves and prioritize those things. This will help you determine when to push harder or when to walk away during that negotiation process. And by knowing your line in the sand, you'll be better prepared, and then you'll end up in a situation where you're entering the negotiation process from a place of clarity, a place of strength, and a place of confidence to make the right decision. Preparing your counteroffer. So you want to make sure you're taking time to evaluate the offer. So you want to make sure you're considering all the information before you decide. So it's important to be patient. But if the company expresses that they plan to hire quickly, it may go faster. So it's important to make sure you do that research before you walk into that negotiation phase. Don't sell yourself short. Remember that you're offering the organization a valuable collection of skills and experience. If you believe their initial offer falls short of your value and experience, be prepared to back it up with your research and your value, and be confident in your decision to ask for more money. Consider a salary range. After you gathered as much information as you can about your market value and the employer's ability to pay, you should choose a salary range to begin that discussion, and you'll want to aim high so that you'll have room to compromise without falling short of that original target. So if you provide a pay range most likely the employer will most likely lean towards the lower end. So be sure that that lower number that you submit is still reasonable. And then once you do all of those things, you're ready to form a reasonable counteroffer. Be careful not to provide too much information. They don't need to know all the personal reasons why you need to make more money. Rather, just stick to that research, your value, and how they align with your desired full compensation package. Last but not least, practice your pitch. So talking about salary can be awkward. So the more you practice, the more at ease you'll be when the time comes to have this conversation. So practice in the mirror or in front of a reliable friend or colleague who can provide you that constructive feedback. But just remember to practice, practice, practice. Delivering your counteroffer. Number one, confidence. The more self-assurance you have, the more likely the employer will value your opinion, and never underestimate your likability. You'll want to persuasively frame your ask. Focus on their needs, not yours. So you might say something like, based on my experience level and my familiarity with X, Y, and Z, I'm ready to step into the role and contribute right away. Would you consider a starting salary of $85,000 instead? Then you'll want to remind them about why they chose to offer you the job in the first place by sharing those valuable skills, experience, and characteristics that's unique to you. You want to make sure you're clear and direct. Make a clear ask. If you have a lot to cover during the negotiation, make sure you let them know in advance that you have items to discuss and break them down versus giving them a long laundry list of things right away. You may even want to consider narrowing down your priorities to about 3 to 5 to limit the back and forth. You'll want to ask open-ended questions. So you want to gauge the pulse of that negotiation and get the feedback by asking these questions. So you may ask a question like, would you consider X, Y, and Z? How do you feel about X, Y, and Z? Is this something you can look into further? Is there any possibility of meeting me halfway on this? So if they agree, you want to express your appreciation, then you want to move on to your next negotiation priority. If they're unsure at the moment, simply ask them if they can look into it further and plan a follow-up conversation. And then you move on to the next priority. If they offer something different and not exactly what you're asking for, say you'll need a little bit more time to think about it before you get back to them. If they say no, politely express its importance to you and ask for them to look into it. If they still say no, tell them you'll need some time to think about it and get back to them. So leverage additional offers. If you have another job offer pending, that may influence the speed of your negotiation as well. But don't be afraid to still ask for more time. It could be helpful to say something like, I'm a strong believer in transparency, so I wanted to let you know that I've received a competitive offer from another company. However, I'm still extremely interested in pursuing a position with you all. Do you have a timeline for when you'll be making a decision? And that can kind of gauge how much time you have. If they rush you to make a decision, use that second offer to improve the first, or vice versa. So you might say, I want to share that I received an offer from a similar role that's 10% higher, but I really love to move forward with you all. Can you match it? No matter what answers you get, don't accept the offer verbally. Buy yourself some time to really think about the new offer and either accept the offer, come back with an additional counter offer, which you will have to redo the process again, or make a final decision. If it goes well at the end of this, you've landed your next job, congratulations, you're hired. If not, let's talk about some things to think about. Knowing when to walk away. So there are some times when a company just can't meet your minimum salary requirement or provide those extra advantages to make it worthwhile to accept. In this case, you must decide whether the lesser compensation is worth the job. So know your bottom line and honor it. Your bottom line is the point at which you've gone the lowest you can go before the offer no longer makes sense. Because you've done your research about the position in the market, you know what the right offer would be and what you settle for. So don't go below your bottom line. Were there any red flags during negotiation? Some of those red flags to look out for are the employer refuses to provide the offer in writing, The employer forces you to make a decision in less than 24 hours. The employer expresses willingness to negotiate, but doesn't. Or straight up disrespect. If they diminish your current position in company, it may reflect a workplace of toxic culture. You'll want to trust your gut. If you have a bad feeling coming out of negotiation, trust it. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. If you feel you're lowballed on the offer, ask yourself why. Or if an offer seems too good to be true, look for those strings attached. So then ask yourself, is it worth it? If it's less stressful than your current job, it's closer to home, it gives you more flexibility and more free time, you might be ready to take a lower salary. If this is not the case, you might want to consider taking a break and just exploring other options. Gracefully decline. So express your appreciation and gratitude for the consideration, explain your decision, and keep the door open for future opportunities. So you may say something like, thank you so much for the offer and the opportunity to work with you. I feel that this role is a great fit and the company embodies all the values that I'm looking for in my next employer. Unfortunately, the salary just doesn't align with my value and experience. Should this become negotiable in the future, please let me know. I wish you the best in your search for the right candidate. It's time for some Q&A. I'll check the chat first. Okay, no questions in the chat.
I was going to put it in the chat, but it was becoming too long of a question. So I'm just going to ask you on here. So you had mentioned that it's good to wait until like a Thursday or a Friday to do the negotiating, which makes total sense because I am in a better mood those 2 days. But let's say they make an offer on a Friday. And so now you either have to, I assume like you're not going to be prepared for the negotiation that day. So is there like a graceful way to kind of like prolong it so that you can push it till next Thursday? Or is that just like you gotta deal with what you're given and do it the beginning or midweek?
I would just simply ask for the time. There's a lot to consider. You've given me a lot of information. I really need to, sit back and decide if this suits what I desire. And most likely, I mean, you do have times when employers may try to rush you, but you always got to try to buy more time. And you also want to work fast because no one wants to be waiting a whole week. So if they offered you on Friday, so Monday is also a good day too, believe it or not, because it's like you want to kind of close out the week. So on Monday, it's like, let's make a decision and let's get it done. But I think it's very rare that they won't allow you that extra time that you need, unless you're asking for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, like that's enough.
Yeah.
But some places they tell you 48 hours, but there's ways to drag it out by asking for more details. And when you ask for more details, they automatically should know that you'll need more time to decide because I have to consider all this new information.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question. I started a position last year, and it ended up being a lot more sophisticated than the job description. And I do a lot of data mining and complex financial analysis, and which wasn't in the job description. And so I've been putting that on my I continually update my resume, continually update my LinkedIn. And so I've been getting a lot of recruiters and interviews through LinkedIn based on those actual job tasks I'm doing at my current job. And they're offering 25 to 30K more a year. I do want to have some work longevity at this position, because I made a switch from finance to marketing, and I want to establish myself more in marketing. So I'm not quite sure how to broach that I'm being approached by other companies who are paying significantly more and interviewing with them for significantly more?
So I wouldn't necessarily share that with your current employer. Not to say that they can do anything in retaliation of that, but I would entertain the conversations. And then once you get a good feeling, because you may not like these companies and you may have, brought this up and you don't even want to work at this place, I would entertain the conversations, the initial conversations. I will do an interview. So you'll have your phone screen, but you want to do that first round interview so you can ask all the questions you need to ask. So you can even do your research as far as, your must-haves and your nice-to-haves, and ask those questions, because at this point, you're in a better place because you have a job already that you're happy with, but this seems to be a better opportunity. So you can kind of come in there and ask all the questions you need.
Well, I want to keep my current position, but I want to negotiate the salary to something that's more on par with what these other companies are offering. I guess that's what I mean.
Yeah, so you can still have the conversation with your current employer about the market. So you can come into it like, I don't feel that I'm getting paid at the rate that I should with this added workload. Here's what the research that I found and how much they're paying for these positions. Can we have a discussion about this? And then maybe you can open up that door in that way. Or if you have a performance review coming around, that'll be a good opportunity to address that as well, because you'll be going over your work performance, what was originally asked of you, and the things that you're doing now. So I would always say, it's great that you're updating your resume as you go, because how easily we forget about the big things we do. So reflect on those things. And then as you have that discussion, talk about that market research that you've done and how much people are getting paid in your location and your industry. And that's
okay, got it. Okay. And I shouldn't mention those other companies, correct?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Okay.
You never want to mention another job unless they have given you an offer.
Okay.
If you have that offer in your hand, then yes, you can use that. But until then, it's just talk to your current employer.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I think you kind of addressed this, but Victor had a similar question about approaching your current company to renegotiate your salary. But I feel like, I don't know if you have anything to add based on what you had just mentioned with Allison.
Yeah, pretty much just making sure, don't ever feel like you can't approach your employer about your salary. But if it's about another job and you're using another job as what made you ask your employer, don't mention that other job. Just mention the research you've done and reflect on the things that you're doing and how that changed from when you first got hired. But also you do want to remember that just because you're doing these things doesn't mean you're necessarily at that level, because at some points it's like you have to consistently do these things. So if you did something one time, you can't say that, I'm doing this, that, and the third. It's like you want to kind of make sure you master those things before you use that to your advantage as something that you've developed yourself into. So just make sure you're being realistic about it as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
Are we both going?
No, you go. I'm asking a ton of questions, so you go.
Awesome. So from an HR standpoint, is there anything that's happened in a negotiation that was a total deal breaker for you? And you're like, you know what, maybe I don't actually want that employee because of what they said or did during a negotiation.
It would definitely have to be something off the wall. But I mean, I can't get mad at somebody for asking for more money. Like I can't. The only thing that has taken me aback, people just asking outrageous numbers after we've given the salary range. Because it's like, if I say that this is how much we have budgeted for the position, I can't increase it 20% more. Like we just cannot do that. But I never look at it in a negative light. But, you know, you can't get what you don't ask for. So it's never a bad thing, but you also don't want to count yourself out. So if you know that the job is only paying, that's why it's important to do that research. If you know the job is only paying 90 to 120K, you don't want to say you're looking for 160, because my experience is recruiting, that's an easy way to narrow my candidate pool as we're looking for good candidates, because you're already asking for way too much than what we can do. So I'll just disqualify you. So just that market research and then knowing what kind of organization you're dealing with. So if you're dealing with a small business and you're comparing salaries from corporate offices and government, it's like, it's not on the same wavelength. So you have to make sure that you're doing thorough research. Don't pick just one site, pick all the site and average all of those out and pick a number in the middle. I hope that answered your question. I feel like I answered in a different kind of way, but I hope that gave you some clarity.
No, that's great. That's great.
Any other questions I can take?
I feel like you kind of talked about this a little, but like obviously talking about pay is, in our culture, maybe it's everyone's culture, is like considered taboo, you know?
Mhm.
And but because of that, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I feel like employers are, this allows them to continue to pay people, you know, less than their worth, because we don't talk about how much we're getting paid.
Mhm.
And so I just don't really know, like, how do we kind of break that stigma and make it so that it is something that we're comfortable discussing regularly?
Yeah, so that's tricky. So it's not illegal to talk about your salary across organizations. It's not something that people want to be done, because that creates so many problems. And there's so many layers to why people get paid differently. And a lot of times when companies push back on those conversations, a lot of times it has to do with them knowing that the pay is not really right across the board. So with that, I would think to fix these problems, it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot, but it's going to take for companies to be serious about fixing it. Like, some companies don't care. They pick their favorites. They pay them more. They move people up the layder. They bring in their friends into the company, especially small organizations. But it will take for the leaders in that organization to truly care about these things and assess their jobs. So right now at Interactive Strategies, something that Ryan and I are working on right now is streamlining our positions and really going through level by level, what's required, what's the basic qualifications that everybody meets, and kind of creating salary bands based on those things. So it's going to take for organizations to have that mindset to fix this problem, and then to make it more comfortable speaking. It's like, people can speak. It's the fear of retaliation that happens after that. Like, does that cost me the promotion that I'm looking forward to next month? Is that going to cost any relationships in the organization? So yeah, that's a tricky one right there. But it's not illegal, so you can talk about your salary. You just don't want to. They don't want you to talk about it, because they know under the hood is not all good. Ryan.
Did he jump in? He
Yeah.
is here.
Hey, Ryan.
So sorry, I did my best to get here.
You missed the whole presentation. Now we're on the question and answers.
Yeah.
But
I have one more question if no one else has them. Sorry, I know I'm like dominating here.
No problem.
My last one is, now that we're in the great resignation or whatever you want to call it, have you noticed like any drastic changes when it comes to hiring and pay negotiation and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. People are demanding higher pay. More people are negotiating. More people are like quick to. Salary is a bigger discussion nowadays. And then you have like the cost of living going up. Like we're living in some crazy times. People want to work remotely, or if it's an in-office job, they want to be able to be flexible and come in once or twice a week. And that's why I made a big emphasis on negotiating those perks and benefits, because if you can't up that salary, you can negotiate how you go about working and that work-life balance and vacation. You can get more vacation. You can ask for, like some people may opt out of the medical benefits so that they can keep all the salary. There are so many ways to go around that, but with the big resignation, it's been a lot. It's hard to find talent because I feel like it's being dominated by those big companies who are able to pay people way more. So it's harder for small organizations to kind of find good talent. So it causes us to have to do more outreach. That's all I can think of at the top of my head, but that's why it's been so much push to like create like a great culture at your workplace, just to make sure, like, because it may not be all about money to everyone. Like you want to work somewhere where you feel comfortable, where you feel like you can thrive. It's not all about money. So I think that a lot of companies are trying to make up for maybe the salary budgets that they have with increasing the job culture.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's the happiness manager portion.
Yeah.
And then you'll find that not a lot of people leave because of salary. They leave for many reasons. For many reasons, a lot of them have to do with flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
No problem. Any more questions?
Okay, I'm gonna pop in because the window got open to like remote work and all the extra perks. Is how do you communicate that culture to someone that you've only met once or twice and help them understand if they fit you and if you're a fit for them? Because it really isn't, you don't get a whole lot of time to do that.
Yeah. To communicate your culture, I like to talk about like things we have going on and like emphasizing those benefits to make that make people feel happy. So you might talk about the things that you do to make sure like people are good. So like during our interviews, I always talk about these happiness surveys that we do every year where we gauge the pulse of everyone and see like what they enjoy spending more time working on, less time working on, things to improve the company, rating their happiness. And I actually have one-on-one meetings with all of the employees, and then we'll go through that list. We'll also talk about the fun things we do. We talk about the scheduling. We emphasize our flexibility. We diversify our interview panels to make sure like people see that we care about diversity. And then we talk about some of those initiatives that we have. Let me think of what else. We have it easy because Ryan, you can speak to this, but we have such great people who just kind of exude that the workplace culture is good. I wonder about companies who like don't have such a good culture, but just emphasizing the things that we care about, highlighting those perks and benefits. Like you don't have to necessarily just talk about the benefits, but incorporate that into the work. So if we're talking about your day-to-day, we'll include some of those perks and those flexibilities within that conversation. And then we also, when we send people an offer, we send them the paperwork and they have time to think about it. And we make sure we put all of those things in that offer letter as well. Then our site has to speak to, I think a lot of it has to do with your site, your career site. So a lot of people are drawn to us because we put so much emphasis on culture that it's pretty much, and then it's in my title. So it kind of shows you a little bit more about our dedication to making sure that our employees are happy. Like our motto is everyone deserves to come to work and be happy. Like, I think those things kind of help us exude our culture. And I always make sure to ask all of the candidates, like, what type of culture are you looking for in your next job? What type of leadership are you looking for? What kind of workplace flexibility? Engage those things to see if people, you know, can want to contribute to that or want to be a part of that. Does that answer your question, Carrie?
Yes, thank you so much. Like that's one of the biggest pieces we feel like we're having these days is like, you might find somebody with the right talent, but are they a culture fit? Will they actually want to live here for more
Well,
than
you have to take out the culture fit and look at it as a culture add.
Well,
So
and for us, I think the fit is living in where we live, right?
Oh,
Because
gotcha. Mm-hmm.
you people, if you're not from Roanoke, this is a very different, it's
Mhm.
smaller than a big city, but it's
Mhm.
bigger than a small town. So it's like, I
Mhm.
think it's a good size, but if you're coming from somewhere a lot bigger, like the culture fit is, do you want to live in this community?
Gotcha. Okay. Got it. So does that affect like diversity?
It does. It affects, I would say living in this region affects everything about the hiring process for us because we're not a huge firm. We're a fairly small firm. We've done a really good job so far of actually recruiting out of town, but a lot of what we hear from candidates that don't make it all the way through, it really is like, well, how big is Roanoke? What do you do there? Like, how close are you to DC? Like you hear a lot of those, especially with the younger people entering the job market, because I think they're still very focused on being closer to a city.
Yeah, or they just don't want to be going to work. They want to be at home and they want it to be very flexible and they want growth opportunities. Those are the three things they focus on.
Yes, I would say we hear a ton of that.
Mm-hmm. 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 And the big thing is this age group makes up majority of the workforce. So like companies are forced to kind of cater to them.
And I think it's hard to create that culture too when you're segmented. So like we really do pride ourselves on having an in-office workplace. We do some hybrid. People have the option when they need it, but you know, culture is a lot different when you're together than when you're separate, especially if you're trying to create a place where you want to live long-term.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So
sorry, I took us down another road.
Nope, it's fine. She said I have expertise in all areas of HR.
Thank you.
No problem, Carrie. Any more questions? And I'm more than happy to drop my contact info in the chat if anybody wants to speak with me one-on-one. Like I love talking to people. I love helping people. I love like bouncing back and forth off of people. So I'll leave my email in the chat. Strategies. And also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Erica Lawson. At thestrategies.com.
Thank you so much, Erica. That was
Thank you.
Really enlightening. Like I said, I was just like, how do we talk about pay? And yeah, there's so much more to consider. And I'd never even thought about by you negotiating more money, you are helping close the pay gap for everybody. And it's like that literally never crossed my mind. So thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it. As you can see, Erica has her email in there if you have any lingering questions that you wanted to ask her. And I'm going to jump on LinkedIn and add you immediately, but you all can do that as well. Perfect. If I'm not sure if Angie or anyone else has anything to add. But if not, I think that's it for today. And you guys get about 11 minutes of your lunch break back.
Awesome.
Thank you,
everyone.
All right.
Erica.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thanks, Erica.
Thanks
Have a good one,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.